and talk about the power of light. My name is Ananya Tritipthumrongchok. I'm graduate PhD from Public Health, Global Public Health, and also be the Professor of Storytelling and Leadership Development in American University of Southern Nation and President AUSN Association and General Manager Bioethics Institute, New Zealand, Japan, and Thailand. Ancient wisdom. There are many forms of wisdom that human societies have used in the past. Are there governing rules of life that make us happier, more successful? What are guiding principles of bioethics? I want to consider the use of the 7 universal laws approach in bioethics. We need the power of life, and this is linked to the love of life. The secret beyond the earth. More than 1,000 years ago in Egypt, people found secret buried into 7 universal laws. It was inside the Emerald Table of Atlantis and named John. It was forbidden knowledge by high society in ancient Egypt. There are 7 universal laws. 1 mind, 2 correspondence, and 3 vibration, 4 polarity, 5 rhythm, 6 cause and effect, and the last one generation. 1 mind, all is mind and everything is energy. The universe is mental. Sometimes dreams can be the foundation of something that we want to make happen. The universe is within our mind. We are what we thought. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. Buddha. Mastering mind. The mind moves in waves. It responds to our thoughts, sensations, and encounters. It peaks and ebbs in a series of highs and lows. It can come from institution or patterns, or even from misinterpretation. It can also come as a truth, which requires the light of awareness. How to exercise our mind? From my 2017 research with 240 people of 9 countries, over half said that they meditate or pray every day. I think this is one way to train our mind. Also nowadays, we have many courses about mind that you can learn by yourself on social media. This is very important to live in a complex world like this era. To correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. This principle states that there is a harmony, agreement, and correspondence between the physical, mental, spiritual plans, reflecting congruent quality. 3 vibrations. Nothing is stationary and everything is vibrant. Giving out light or sound. This principle explains that the difference between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit are the result of only physical vibrations. Oprah Winfrey. Kara remind me about the Oprah Winfrey that we talk about, right? Maybe my presentation is a part of cosmology that relate to Kara's yesterday presentation, right? And Oprah Winfrey is the one that unlike her very much because he is a leader of the spiritual for me, right? And he talk about she a popular modern celebrity. Oprah Winfrey talks about vibration. She introduced Ether Hicks on the topic. Are we ready for the word vibrations? They talk about when you are appreciating, or when you are loving, or when you are acknowledging the value of something. You are in the moment, a vibration matched to the source that is truly you. You can see on YouTube about this interview. And also her Twitter talk about we are vibrational beings. You cannot have what you are not willing to become vibrationally. My biggest aha today. For polarity, the idea that everything is dual, everything has two poles, and everything has its opposites. All manifested things have two sides, two aspects, or two poles. Everything is and isn't at the same time, thus extremes meet. We can compare this to the famous China yin and yang. Have you seen this movie, Singularity Principle? Somebody seen this movie? This movie 2013, right? It's a feature-length science fiction film about the consequence of linear experiments into parallel universes. It's so amazing and interesting. They do an experiment that creates a portal between parallel universes and learn how to reproduce and control the physical processing. Find rhythm or ebb and flow and demonstrate by action and reaction as swing backward and forward. This principle explains that there is little between every pair of opposites. 6 cause and effects. Nothing happens by chance. Everything happens according to the law. This is a cause for every effect and an effect for every cause. What goes around comes around. Should we treat disease? This is a traditional of treating the sick with compassion and medical treatment. So the principle of cause and effect does not mean that we should not apply medical treatment. This will include genetic therapy. If we believe in karma, should we edit the gene of someone conceived with a genetic disease? I did research in 2017 on attitudes in Thailand and the Philippines, and people did not link genetic disease and karma. When we ask about when a baby is born with a disease or disability, what do you think this is caused? What do you think is the cause? 50% say is because of genetic disease, while 17% say it was random, 14% say it was something bad the mother did, 14% say it was because of karma, and 7% something bad on the father's side. 7 generation is manifested in everything, and everything animate or inanimate is both masculine and feminine, physical, mental, and spiritual. This represent difficult aspect on different aspect on different plans. It is also said that everything and everyone contains these two elements. How do we apply these truths? We have different laws in different cultures, even with strong influence from Buddhism. In the case of Thai society, a woman cannot be a monk. Only a man can be. But in other countries, including China, South Korea, and Sri Lanka, Buddhists allow women to be a monk. Theravada Buddhism is the religion of 7% of the population of Sri Lanka, and 95% in Thailand. Although these have different rules to Thailand. Example of healing. I have a friend who lives in South Africa. He is German and uses holistic healing to treat people, doing balancing when clients have symptoms, also using hypnosis to help heal a mind when they get stress and depression. It works quite well because some clients come back to visit her, and she still gets more clients from the referrals. Their community is called Center of Universal Mind that look like church, having a mind training course every week. Breaking Boundaries. Dr. Masaru Emoto's water experiment. Words are powerful. He is a Japanese author and entrepreneur, best known for his claims that human consciousness has an effect on the molecular structure of water. We should explore new ideas in science through research. Dr. Emoto did an experiment saying water is more than simply a physical substance. He reported a positive change to water crystals can be achieved through prayer, music, or by attaching written words to the container of water. The research indicates that human vibrational energy through thought, energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect to the molecular structure of water. Water comprises over 80% of the mortal human body and covers that same amount of our planet. Examples of water crystals. The first one is polluted, and the second one before prayer, the third one after prayer, and the last one when container used with the word happiness. If the words and thoughts can come out of us really have this effect on water crystals, it's amazing to think of what kind of effect we have on the people and events that come into our life. What do you think? Live to learn and learn to love. In conclusion, we are born in the world because of some reason. We are born to learn, to give, to take, and realize to present that everything will be manifest. We are a gift of God and we can make a life better and happier. Nothing is impossible. Everything is related to our mind, physical, mental, and spiritual. That is what we call law of universe.
Okay, thank you. So, do we have questions now, please? You leave it on there. Questions for the presentation first, and then we have a discussion. Remarks. Yes, Daniel, please.
From the previous slide about the crystals in the water, which can be photographed, but are not presently part of science.
Slide. What is
To be precise, they are not part of the science which is supposed to take care of our drinking water, according to standard regulations within the Israeli Ministry of Health and in general. That's one point, and second point, exactly following the first one, I've never been treated by homeopathy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I have no emotional involvement with this kind of therapy. But the principle underlying homeopathy is that something happens if we manipulated water, even to the extent of non-existent particle material within the water. Now, this particular trait of homeopathy is what makes it unscientific according to current science of water. So, if you could relate these topics to your argument. You understood me? Homeopathy?
What do you think about, well, how much is homeopathy accepted in Thailand?
I think translation is needed here.
No. Homeopathy.
Let's write it down.
Carla, would you like to continue the discussion?
I think I won't go. Okay, I won't go so far as into homeopathy, but Dr. Emoto's work, there's been a lot of very serious research on I think homeopathy is its own realm of dynamics, and I certainly am not prepared to discuss it. Certainly in India, there's extensive work with homeopathy, probably much more than in Thailand, the Ayurvedic and then the homeopathic. But in terms of Dr. Emoto's work, there's a lot of very serious research that's been done on at this frontier of Dr. Emoto. Some very scientific research in terms of stress and PTSD and other dynamics. I certainly wouldn't disregard his work. Under the microscope, people who've experienced trauma, looking at the water crystals in the water processes in their own body, the fractured images and things. It's borderline science for traditional science, but then our traditional science is doing things like giving very, very harmful narcotic drugs to our older people and using them as a dump for essentially money, sickness, following sickness. So it's like to call modern medicine the scientific, we could call it the economic pharmaceutical industry, and healing and its questions of healing are very controversial. Not to say that our scientific medical practices are not highly valuable and advantageous. But Dr. Emoto's work is also very profound, and I think the discussions that we've had today, that there is much knowledge and wisdom beyond the borders of those, and on the borders, certainly, and between the borders of what previously indigenous people have regarded as healing practices, as well as modern healing practices, and the need for ethics to cross between those worlds is serious. And Dr. Emoto's work has had some very, very serious scientific reflections on this. I wouldn't disregard it.
But homeopathics in Thailand, we have a long history, and now we still use it like we call traditional Thai traditional therapy or medicine. Use the herb, use the meditation, use the nature, something like that. Like okay, we walk on the grass to treat ourselves. Something like that. Many ways to treat about the homeopathics in Thailand.
And if you could expand on this, how do you see science through this?
But
those are
these
photographs. Those
But
are
I know.
microscopic photographs.
Yes, I know.
But this one is go on YouTube also because as refer to Carla mentioned, right? This one the doctor. He did very serious experiment, and he did not only water, even the white RICE, right? When we eat, everything that they put on the container, and they put the word, and sometimes they use the music, something like that. Have many ways to do experiments. I will tell you about the YouTube. This is just a refer to him because I think this one is quite interesting to change like that. He mentioned right, 80% in our body, our physical is water. It's like we can change. It's not mean that we change gene, but we just change something in the body, in the physical, and everything related to the mind, everything related to the emotional.
Would you mind to go up? The mic is too short.
I would like to go back to the seven topics that you introduced in the beginning. How is that the law be applied to our everyday life? And I think it's very interesting because God, the God inventor, right? Of the Egyptian, very smart God, and he invented so many things. But now, in this sense, he is more interested upon the what you call the aspects of immaterial, the spirit, the mind, everything. In your opinion, how do you bring that in everyday life, and apply it to everyday life? Yeah. This is very interesting for this era to use this seventh law for our survival at the present.
Thank you very much. You know, I interested about this one because I have the master who is monk. Right, my master is monk, and he used this one to treat the people about understand the people and train our mind and healing our mind. That I think everyone do it, but in everyday, but maybe you not realize you try to calm down or talk about yourself. It's like a train the mind or everything. I think we can prove by science, right? Polarity or generation observation. I think everything can do experiment and all proved by science. And for me, I'm not realize every day I use this one, but I think most of my time I use all of them to get my life better and better and share to other people also. I'm not sure this is I'm correct the answer or not.
Yeah, please.
Yes, no, sir, please.
To please come back to the picture of, because sometimes I saw a movie called What I Did We Should Know, and they showed this picture.
What beat do we know?
Which picture?
What the beat do we know?
What the bit do we know? Yeah,
Which picture?
and it was more related
Which
to
picture did you want?
The doll's
This one?
picture.
yeah.
This one?
Yeah, this one. Yeah, and they were talking about physics, quantum physics, and they explained this like your brain define your reality. From my understanding, sorry if it's a mistake. So if you have, or maybe my mind, if you have positive vibration or intention, the water would be kind of beauty in the like a fluff in the snow, I don't know. And if you have bad vibration or thinking or mind and vibration, so it would be like a monster. So I thought myself very interesting. So we should be positive all the time. I'll try my best. But I believe, I totally believe on this, even maybe could not be scientific. I don't know.
That should be counted scientifically, as a scientific hypothesis, which should be tested exactly, and not exclude from science from the beginning as unscientific because it relates to concepts that present science doesn't want to do.
The consequence can be measured in scientific measure, but the origin is transcendent. If I understood your question, It's a kind of a boundary.
Maybe, if I may.
Yeah, Daniel, please, yeah.
One sentence.
Please go closer.
Sorry. Because I think there is a bias in science, and this bias is that science is only about objective things that could be measured. Now, we know that reality consists not only of objective things, but also of subjective experience. So if you want to complete science, it has to include subjective experience. And science which does not include subjectivity is, I think, by definition, an incomplete science. That's my belief.
Maybe I can, shall I join in the discussion? Okay, so science is a general term for study. It's also, we have several theories of science. One is the falsifiability hypothesis that's common in Karl Popper, that if you have something called science, you can think of an experiment to design an experiment to disprove your theory. So there are many scientific works described by the Japanese researcher and many others. There are many theories of science, and if you can design a theory, it can apply to any domain. I originally came to Bangkok. I was the regional advisor for social and human sciences in Asia and the Pacific. I'm emphasizing the sciences. So the social sciences includes sociology and anthropology and many social sciences. The human sciences includes philosophy. Now, where does religion go? Probably in the human sciences. So it's included in here. But what Daniel was talking about is the general bias in society towards natural science as being a legitimate science and less emphasis on the human sciences. So his questioning of you was relating to, can you explain the linkage of the water crystals to scientific method? So in fact, and you explained there are many research done by the Japanese researcher and others, and especially in the general field, some of this is related to homeopathy as well. We do have our AUSN professor of homeopathy, who has 3 doctorates. She is a medical doctorate in Western medicine. She has a PhD in molecular biology, and she's a doctor of homeopathy. And most of her practice in Japan, this is Mahaila Sibalia, who's living in Japan for many years, 20 years or so. She is mainly training and practicing homeopathy and doing research in homeopathy. So there are research and established methods. Interestingly, knowing Daniel's earlier history, you talked about the campaigns against fluoridation of water and the water safety and the purity. So then, maybe you want to come back to comment, but I can imagine the limits of Western science in this discussion are dilution factors. They say that if you dilute enough, then it's no longer natural science to describe an effect. But the work of some of these scholars is to say, well, even if you dilute so much, but it's extremely dilute, you're still going to have some effect, even from the shadow of the molecules that were no longer there. And it's sort of interesting. If you take it to a philosophy, so all of us have a water molecule that was in Jesus Christ. You all have a water molecule that was in Muhammad. You all have a water molecule that was in Napoleon. Because of the dilution and the mixing of the water, we have so much water in our body. We have water from all these famous figures in our body. We're sort of should be inspired. But does it make any significant effect to us? Natural science would say no, and maybe our mind would say no, but some people would say maybe it does. But in their treatments, then they're saying that. So in your work against for purification of water, we have limits. So for example, for the record on our video, today is the 31st of January 2019. And the public schools in the center of Bangkok were closed because of an arbitrary limit on the level of the air pollutants. It was above a certain parts per million. But that's an arbitrary limit. One could say it's probably unhealthy even to lower limits than that is. But for some people it's not going to matter because their metabolism will cope with it. So it actually relates to a big question in bioethics of the setting standards of limit. So for example, radiation damage. We used to set standards to say that some level of radiation damage was safe. As you know, the limit per year of the general operation of your life is that 1 millisievert radiation is the tolerated limit per year. But if you have a nuclear meltdown, as we did in Chernobyl and Fukushima, the contamination zone has a much higher level, so the WHO supports you increase the limit to 20 millisieverts per year as a safe environment for some decades until the levels go down. But they're both arbitrary, because in fact any level is somehow dangerous in any effect. But we can't live. We do have these limits from natural radiation. So that's the argument. And some people live with water and they drink water that has high levels of selenium or mercury or fluorine anyway. So then the question is, if we change it naturally, or naturally you're exposed to high level, but he has a very pure water in his country, but now you're going to increase the level to what you're living with and say that but his problem is artificial, but he happened to be living in your country, then it doesn't matter to him. Okay, so it's sort of, then when people buy water filters, probably in 50 years we find that actually it was more healthy to have a little bit of selenium and a little bit of fluoride and a little bit of these things, because we don't really know. It's all a bit of a mystery. So that's the interesting issue of bioethics, making decisions of science based on the current scientific understanding. And probably we need to relax a little bit, but also to be cautious about chemical pollutants and other things that do cause harm. But so Daniel, maybe you would like to say some more about your work and your interpretation of it.
Not about my work, but we were talking about science, and Dara said, well, we should think about study. And I wanted to speak about the tree of knowledge. Because science is derived from Latin for knowledge, scientia. And in Hebrew, the tree of what is translated to tree of knowledge is pronounced like this. Da'at, while knowledge is Yada. It's similar in root, but different meaning, because the tree of knowledge is, the longer term is tree of knowledge, good from bad. And that's ethics. And that is supposedly a precondition for knowledge, which is science. That's one point. So the question is whether we put hard sciences first and then refer also to the humanities and social sciences, or start with bioethics, because that's the broadest term. I'm using bioethics in the sense of Van Potter. And then that is coming first. And now about the second thing that Dara said, we don't know enough. Therefore, first we should opt for natural environment. To try not to interfere, to try not to impose current knowledge on natural environment, which is the outcome of millions of years of evolution. That's one thing. The other thing is that we don't really know whether a certain particle or aspect in the natural environment is good or not so good for us, but we do know, you mentioned radiation, and we do know that we don't want to have too many negative synergies. So we want to cut down on risks. So I think, so my term for this is load. I don't want to argue that any particular particle or another environmental threat is a risk for me. Maybe I could handle it in small quantities. For example, I expect to be back home after a whole week in polluted Bangkok. So I expect to be able to survive such pollution. But I wouldn't like to struggle with continuous pollution like this, plus radiation from all sorts, etc. Thank you.
Okay, Angeliki, like I said, finish that.
Okay.
Regarding this one, is my understanding correct that what is being asked is to make this one scientific? No? Okay. So in my understanding, if I don't make that scientific, you see, I think what Ananya would like to know is this is a question. If the words and thoughts that come out of us really have this effect on water crystals, it's amazing to think of what kind of effect they have on the people and events that come into our lives. What do you think? So meaning this is perception, right? So what she would like to know is the thinking of the respondents, correct? And to make that scientific, you are right, because he's right in a sense that this can be interpreted in so many ways, but it depends on the respondents. For me to make this scientific, I will jot down all the comments. So there is no right or correct answer. Just jot it down, okay? And then the comments can be statistically treated, to make it scientific. Because the thinking of one person cannot be the thinking of another person. So it can be done through the use of a Likert scale. Now, identifying, determining if the thinking of that person is similar as the thinking of another person. So a study can be made scientific based on the different kinds of analysis. So you can use the statistical analysis, depends on who are your respondents. So that would make that scientific. So that is what I'd like to share.
When we left of course, that's a methodology of social science, that we can apply social science methods to questions that are answered by people with just opinions. It doesn't mean that the opinions are scientific, but it means that the method of study of people's opinions and beliefs, passions, loves, religions, this is the social science. That their actual beliefs can be anything. And they are. That's why we're human beings. So some people believe, and is the belief that this special water that I'm going to drink because I feel depressed is going to make me happy, is that going to be a therapeutic medicine for me? It already seems to be a therapy in the fact that I believe and have hope that this is working. So, and that's fairly harmless. The challenge is when people are taking crystallized, water for cancer therapy and if they pay a lot of money for it, then we consider it fraud. If they don't pay much money and these people are giving it for free to people and if people have hope, then that's good. But the question is, people buy all sorts of ridiculous things paying lots of money, so why should we tell them you can't buy medicine from Dr. Daniel because he said it's special and pure and has special crystal properties, and then they believe and they get better because of that strong belief and this passion. So then, that's interesting in terms of the regulation of informed choice as well. Because of bioethics, how do I regulate what's a safe medicine or not a safe medicine? What can people charge money for? But if you go to a shop, you can spend, hundreds of dollars on a haircut, thousands of dollars on a handbag, believing that this handbag is worth thousands of dollars and this handbag is not. So why not pay thousands of dollars for this medicine and something for this one? This is the interesting paradoxes. And in ethics, we do need to, protect vulnerable people. But in that, if we really did it, then we'd stop people wasting their money in Siam Shopping Centre, which seems to be a destination many of you your fate will take you there to this afternoon. So then, if you don't want to be safe, then let me take care of your wallets while you go to a shopping centre, and you can go window shopping only. Does anybody else have any other comments on intercultural ethics? Is it possible? And do these 7 laws, could they be applied to different religions or different belief systems? Is there something missing? And also the final statement that you closed with. We are born to learn. Okay, I think we're born to love. So, actually, it's an interesting question in terms of an epistemology of life. If we believe we're born to learn, we go to university and we study, and that's the nature of the human mind, the right to study. And I think that's natural. Children ask questions, they were born to learn. But also maybe we're born to learn and born to love as well. And it's not exclusive. To give and take and realize. Okay? So, any comments or reflections? Is it all in the birth of the stars?
Question. What is the crystal? What crystal are you referring? About the water crystal?
That is what a crystal say.
Any crystal. Any crystal. Not amethyst or what?
Well, it's also interesting because people have some belief that crystals are spiritually strong as well, and maybe it's an interesting research. Carla, please. Give us some crystal knowledge.
Not crystal knowledge, but just some thoughts in response. So there's certainly this movement that compassion is the nature of what we're aspiring to do and to be, and that if we are more compassionate as a race, that we will be achieving more closely the destiny and the goal of what is the reality of a human being. And I was thinking about this idea of compassion. So, and the word I love, co-together, passion, the play of the pairs of opposites, love and hate, good and bad, all of these things. But then to realize that loving and learning, and the question of, well, why does the universe create these little tiny organisms or bigger organisms that can reflect upon itself? So, from my thoughts, it's the universe itself reflecting on itself. And this idea of, well, are we playing God. But then that's sort of saying, well, what is God? Or is there anything that isn't that which is the one thing that is? So if the whole thing is one thing, which is essentially the teaching that we have in all our traditions, as well as in physics itself, that the seed of the universe, a single seed, goes through these infinite geometries and the gauge symmetries and quantum mechanics and produces all this incredible diversity of expression of itself, essentially, then to say that we are to learning and loving all of these things are essentially the harmonics, the vibrations of reiterating the infinite complexity and beauty in art and science of the one itself. So again, we can go back to Shiva Chakti, Lila, or the play, the great play of the drama of the beauty of the universe, learning and loving and creating itself and infinitely co-creating to the great play, the music, the sound, the drama, which is inherent in all of these philosophies. So loving and learning and creating, they're all come together, they're all facets of that one infinite, those geometries of the crystals of existence.
Wow.
Tritipthum, please come.
Well, I think we can summarize that whatever you say, why we are here and why we are talking the way we do, is because we are part of the one. All is one, you know? And every single one of us can help for the better. Otherwise, we would not be here. And I think that is a very beginning of the good side of the humanities in the rest of the universe. Even though we don't have that much hope, but we still have hope. That's why we keep on going. So I think that probably Ananya tried to carry us some message that why the 7 topics are so important for all of us, which sometimes we forget, even though it has been here for several thousand years already. Yeah.
So, Chitta, please stay there. A question. Why 7 is a holy number, yet there are 5 precepts in Buddhism?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay.
That's a good question because why is an even number, one thing, and the 5 is somehow, I'm sorry, it's an odd number.
5 is?
5
How many
is,
fingers do you have?
yeah, right.
So that's why 5 is easy. But 7, why 7?
7 days.
But we only have 7-day calendar from Egypt. Yeah? So
Right.
Egyptian days of a week and 7 planets.
Right, 7
Yeah,
planets.
that's right.
I'm glad that you're doing some mathematics.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there must be some reason behind all this.
There are 9 planets or 8 planets.
Well, at the time when they were deciding the calendar, it was 7 they could see.
Yeah. But now Pluto is also another.
Pluto is put in the doghouse.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Well, at the time when they're observing by the naked eye, you can see 7 planets. That's why 7 days of a week.
Okay.
Then was it made 9?
Well, 9 you find, in fact, in some statues in Hindu tradition you find 9, but it's interesting. But this is coming out of Egyptian science, which is also, our calendar came out of Egypt as well. So 7 days of a week came from the Egyptian calendar.
That's why the Bible was 7 keeps.
Any more comments? Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Interesting dialogue.